Yeah, I struggle on whether or not I give this one a 9 or a 10 because I don't know if I can give anything a 10. Can anything actually be perfect?
Yes, things can be a 10. Yes, 10 doesn't mean perfect. It's a fucking numerical scale to describe art. Like, you can have a 10. If you want a 10, you can have a 10.
Okay, then it's a 10.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blockbuster, where three dudes talk about movies that we like and sometimes don't like. I am one of your hosts. My name is Ben. Welcome.
Hi, I am Mitch. I am the host with the most.
And I am Lucas, the host with the least.
We have a special guest today.
I'm Kyra, the host who is not a host. I am here for this movie in particular, and I am very glad that you guys were up for having me on, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't know whose idea it was specifically, but it was because the movie we're watching today is called Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and it's a very female-centric movie. It's all-female cast, female director and writer, and it's about a lot of things having to do with women. Three dudes talking about this movie might come across a little incomplete, so we figured we'd expand our horizons.
Yeah, it was my idea because I told Mitch that I thought maybe it wasn't the right call to not have a woman who knows about liking women talking about the movie with only women in it. Yeah.
Excellent. Mitch is the one who recommended this movie. Do you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ben. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, made in 2019, is a French film by Céline Sciamma. It stars Adèle Haenel as Héloïse and Naomi Merlant as Marianne. It's also worth noting that Hélène Demar is the artist who created all the paintings for the film, which it feels important to talk about her because the paintings are really their own character too, and we can talk a little bit about that later. I'll kick it off with a quick summary of the film. Marianne is an 18th century painter sent to an island off the coast of Brittany. Her task is to secretly paint a portrait of a young noblewoman, Héloïse, a task that is difficult in more ways than one. As the two women get to know each other through stolen glances and quiet conversations, both painter and muse both realize there's a lot more at stake than a portrait.
Lots of painting. Yeah. It's a paint movie.
Okay.
I hope you like colors.
So we have a little tradition on our podcast where each of us come up with a subtitle or marquee for the film that we watched. And since Kyra is our special guest, why don't you start us off, Kyra?
Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Cool. Guess I'll jump off a cliff then.
Very nice. Snaps.
Yeah, I felt the same way by the end. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. The find you someone that looks at you meme stretched out for about 2 hours.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
Female gaze, the movie. But not that sort of gaze. But also kind of that sort of gaze.
Yeah, but also, yeah.
Female gaze two ways.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure I stole that from a YouTube thing that Mitch showed me, but you know.
Just say you did it.
It was me. It was my idea.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Love and other armpit drugs.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What?
Oh, yeah.
So.
I have opinions on what that scene might be.
It's CBD oil.
Well, as a start from the top, get everyone's general impressions on the film before we dive too deep into that film analysis mode. All right, Ben, what were your thoughts on A Portrait of a Lady on Fire?
I liked it a lot. It moved me, made me very sad, but also like, oh, pulled me in a lot of different directions. I had a couple criticisms. I'm still trying to flesh them out. It's a movie that I definitely don't think you can fully process on one go.
I really like this movie. It reminds me very much of another favorite movie of mine, Call Me By Your Name by Luca Guadagnino. It is a beautiful, heart-wrenching movie with lots of posed shots I kind of wish we did a double feature because one film uses fire symbolism while the other uses water. I am very excited to get into it.
Yeah, this was my second time seeing Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I definitely agree with Ben. You get more out of it the more you watch it. I really love this film. I think it's such an intimate look into the experience of being a woman and the experience of finding safety in other women and the experience of running from men. The sound design is incredible. The acting is incredible. Costume design, so much about this film I love. And it's usually not the kind of film I would love. I'm not much of one for slow burns, but yeah, I really love this one.
Similarly to Kyra, I love this film. I think it's a triumph. It's so astoundingly beautiful. And the film, the cinematography, the acting, the screenplay. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's one of the best films I've ever seen. Yeah, I mean, I can't talk about this film enough. I just think it's beautiful. It's why I watch movies.
You know it's going to be a banger if Mitch says it's a triumph.
We open on Marianne teaching a class of female artists where she is the sitter for them. The sitter is someone who is sitting for a painting or a drawing. You could also call them the model or the muse. One student brought out a painting from storage, the portrait of a lady on fire. We learned that she had painted this a long time ago.
Real quick, can we all just take a moment and appreciate how beautiful the portrait of the lady on fire is? I love that painting. I want it framed and on my wall. I think it's awesome. In this scene, we get introduction towards one of the themes that permeates the movie, which is the idea of observer and observed, including the audience, which is cool. It's not just a matter of like who in the scene is observing someone and who in the scene is being observed, but it's also what the audience is observing. And in this scene, it's all shot from her perspective, so we see all the students staring at the camera, staring at us as if we are her, and then only later is it revealed that they were all staring at her. The note I wrote down on this, establishing that there is identity in being an artist, which is kind of self-explanatory.
No, it's not in the context of how often women have been excluded from art in history, from being artists. Marianne herself experiences exclusion from getting to be an artist. So I actually think it's a very important point.
Cut to Marianne on a boat. Her cargo she's wrestling with goes overboard. She has to dive in to retrieve it herself. Men of no help.
Another real quick note. All the men are shot from behind. You don't see their faces. But you do see one, and that's the person who's steering the boat. And I think, aside from the ending, that's the only man that you see throughout the entire movie.
Pretty much, yeah.
That same man does come back one more time when Mom comes back later.
But other than that, there's basically 2 cameo men appearances. Drenched, she slogs up to a chateau, where we meet Sophie, the housemaid.
I love Sophie. She, to me, is probably my favorite character in this movie. I know, like, she's not the main character, but her B storyline, honestly, was super captivating to me.
Oh, really? I think, personally, in my opinion, Sophie's B plot is the weakest part of the movie.
We'll get into that, because...
We're going to have to get into that.
Marianne, we realized that her cargo that she was carrying was some canvases. She sets them out to dry.
I think there's some importance in the way she sets them out to dry and like what's happening leading up to her finding more about the lady of the house, which is that she sets them out to dry in front of the fireplace. She's also totally soaked. So she takes off all of her clothes. She's completely naked in front of the fire and she's smoking a pipe. And I think this is one of the first places where this like sense of who is this for, whose gaze is this for, really is revealed, because it's not a sexual scene. She's naked, but it's not sexy. It's practical. It's she was cold, now she's here, she's relaxing.
The canvases are blank and drying off. She is naked, blank and drying off, and it's all of these exciting potentials of like what is going to come in this movie. We're here at the start.
There's a symmetry between her nakedness and the unpainted canvas and the start of a journey, for sure, there. We learn that the young lady of the house has only been brought here recently from a convent because her sister died. Marianne is here to paint her. She then finds the painting of the previous painter who failed to capture the lady of the house's image. The painting is missing a face.
In this scene, I am jealous of Marianne is having the like most beautiful girl dinner ever. It is like a half loaf of bread, a quarter wheel of cheese, and some wine. Ugh, heaven. Amazing. And then yeah, automatically just you get the sense of tragedy of she is being brought into this place because she was at the convent. She was, pursuing a religious life. She was brought because her sister died, and that immediately had me thinking like, oh gosh, is this a like replace the bride sort of situation, and how complicated and horrible this must be.
I also think it's interesting. I'm not sure. I'm still cooking on whether or not I feel like this fact is relevant, but there is a long history of women who are lesbian joining convents to avoid having to marry men. I don't think that's overt here, but I think that was playing in my head when we first learned that she was coming from a convent.
We then meet the mother, the lady of the house, who in this film her character has a name, but it's basically like the Countess in French. We don't get her proper, like full name. Marianne's painting is to be for the suitor of the daughter. She is told that the previous painter failed because her daughter never let him see her face because she was opposed to the marriage. The mother reveals that Marianne will pretend to just be a companion for the daughter, but will be painting her in secret.
Dope premise.
Yeah, I mean, that really sets up the gaze again, especially because the painting is meant to be a gift for her future husband. I believe this is the scene where we learn the painting will arrive in Milan, where her betrothed lives before she does. And that this is also the scene where the Countess shows Marianne the painting that Marianne's father did of her, the Countess, before she got married and came to Brittany from Milan. There's a bunch of parallels happening there.
This might not be anything. To look at someone, whenever they were saying, to look, they use the French verb regarder, which sounds very similar and stems from like regard to regard, which implies more of like an understanding and not just a viewing of somebody. I don't know if that's something, but it felt like I wanted to say.
It's definitely something.
Before Marianne goes on her first walk with Eloise, Sophie reveals that the sister committed suicide on a walk while with Sophie, jumping from the cliffside.
I should have read it at face value, but I was like, this little girl killed her because me and all my horror movies. But spoiler alert, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of tension in this film, but not that kind of a whodunit type tension.
In this scene, she seemed not so, I guess, emotional about it, but I think that is very much like Sophie's character, where she is kind of holding things in initially. She's being a little more reserved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she has to. She's lowest of station in the whole dynamic. There's an interesting comment that the director made about like the hierarchy being inherently patriarchal, and Sophie is obeying that patriarchal hierarchy.
So we are finally introduced to Eloise. They go on this walk, and it's a lot of Marianne's sort of glances. The camera operates sort of as Marianne's eyes as she's trying to capture little bits of information and details, her ears, how her hair moves, things like that on this first walk. The camera feels more invasive in this part of the film when Marianne is withholding the truth about why she's there and what she's doing. Like you feel like you're spying on Eloise rather than this sort of shared back and forth experience that is in the later parts of the film.
I think also Eloise feels like she's being spied on. Like this shot, this sequence is beautiful of like the back of her head with the hood on and this sense of you kind of as Marianne, like the camera is Marianne, you are Marianne, trying to catch up with her and see her because her face is hidden. And we haven't seen her face at all because the only painting we've seen is the one where there is no face because the last painter failed. And like the hood falls down and you sort of see her and she starts running, and lines of dialogue that refer back to the way her sister died, where she starts running and she turns around and she looks at Marianne and she says, "I've always dreamed of doing that." And Marianne says, "Dying?" And Heloise says, "No, running." And I love that bit of dialogue.
Yeah, that's an interesting detail that you mentioned that I just now noticed. The portrait's being painted for Heloise's husband, who's going to see it before he sees her. Mm-hmm. And yet, Marianne doesn't see any paintings or pictures of her before she sees her. And I mean, she barely sees her at first. It's very difficult to see her because she's very elusive. She doesn't want to be seen. It seems like Heloise is the type of person that doesn't want to stay still.
And I think that speaks a lot to what Lucas was saying earlier about a lot of the film feeling posed, is that especially in like Act 1, Heloise won't pose like for the camera or for us in the same way that she won't pose for a painting.
Which is why this subterfuge is going on, like why this secret mission is happening.
Subterfuge. I like that word.
After the walk, Eloise asked to borrow a book from Marianne. Very tense scene because Marianne has to go into where she's staying and grab it from behind this curtain where all her painting supplies are, and bring it back out. And this is also kind of a sub-theme in the first act where when the deception is there, that Marianne has to do these sort of sneaky things to keep the why she's there a secret.
I really like when Eloise asks to borrow a book, because it almost seems like, like, do you have word of the outside world? Like, do you have something new for me to be able to actually, like, spend my mind over to engage with and read? And it felt like, when she grabbed the book, she grabs it with, like, I don't know, such love and wonder, and like rushes off with it.
Yeah, almost like a teddy bear or something. This book will also be very important later in the film.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh,
He just got it.
Yep. I did just get it.
Marianne sets to work, gets kind of her base coat going, some drawing. An interesting thing.
Base coat. Real quick, we should mention Mitch has a background in painting and fine art and illustration.
I guess this is a good time as any. I'll just talk a little bit about the painting process for this film. If the painter who did all the paintings for the film, she also plays Marianne's hands in all these scenes. So she's in the film. Like these scenes where the drawings are happening, that's the actual artist. And so she would be on set in costume. It's kind of interesting because it was like her day job that she would go there, do all those shots, and then rush home off the boat to like go home and try to finish as much of the paintings as she could for the next day of shooting, which I think is just an interesting detail.
The actress who plays Marianne, she talks about how she was trying to construct Marianne's gaze out of also the gaze of the painter, the actual woman who was doing the painting, and the gaze of the director. So she was trying to have all of those things happen in her characterization of Marianne.
I was very curious. I'm glad you guys did the research, because I was kind of thinking like, does Naomi, does she have like these painting skills in her like repertoire? Is that like why they hired her as the actor, or was this like a little swap sort of thing? So it's cool to see how the cookie crumbles is made.
How the sausage is made.
How the sausage is made.
Yeah.
On one of their walks, Marianne and Eloise discuss marriage and life in the convent. There's talk of libraries, music, and equality, juxtaposed by the married life of a lady.
Is this the scene where they have like the like scarves on as they're walking outside?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
I also thought that was interesting, where I believe it was Sophie comes up to Marianne and says, "I must cover you." And at this point I was curious, was this Eloise trying to like mess with Marianne, being like, try to paint me now when I'm half covered? Or was this like the depiction of, this chateau, its oppression of women, like, I don't know, women needing to be handled or taken care of in this dainty way when it's like, it's a little windy outside. Like, they will be fine.
I think I think it's more the latter, like the expectation of them going outside. It's windy. They have to wear face scarves.
But I think it is notable that the face scarves are very transparent. Like, I was looking at those things thinking, that's not keeping you warm. That's just sexy. That's just supposed to be a sensuality to the silhouette of the face. And I think that there's a lot in this movie that speaks to the way women look at each other and see sex in each other that's very different from perhaps the way a man would look at a woman and see sex. So I think actually that like silhouette behind the scarf is really sexy, and it's meant to be extremely sensual. And I almost wonder if that's a stronger thing there than period context.
I think the other thing it does is it creates challenges and roadblocks for Marianne in like her observance of Eloise. Like, for instance, later in this scene, she kind of like sneaks away behind a rock to do some sketching while Eloise is on the beach, and she's focusing on the hands there because obviously she's not getting a good look at her face. So I think that's it could also serve a narrative functional role as well. So I'm going to rattle off some scenes real quick just to keep the pace up. Marianne puts on the dress, is kind of we were introduced earlier in the film to the green dress that Heloise is supposed to be wearing for this portrait, but obviously she can't sit there and wear it. So Marianne puts it on to kind of see how the folds, the light, how these things, she's looking in a mirror. It's also the first time Marianne enters the role of the sitter, which I think is important because as the film goes on, she's slowly transforming to see those two positions as equal.
I also do want to interject that all three of our main female characters will wear this dress at some point in the movie.
Oh, that's a cool detail.
The dress like symbolizes the social conformity or like the social expectations, and I love it how it's I love the symbolism of it.
Yeah, I mean, so the dress is really supposed to represent the male gaze and the constraints put on women by a patriarchal society, and those constraints look different for all three of them, but all three of them experience them, and we see them all in the movie, and it's physically represented by this dress that is a much more vibrant color than any of them are wearing, like almost a more false looking color than any of the other outfits they're wearing.
So while she's in the green dress, there's a knock at the door, and Eloise asks to come in, and Marianne once again sort of in this deception, she's having to hide in this deception. She like runs behind her curtain and takes off the green dress and comes around. And as she comes around the corner, Eloise is then in the sitter's position, like on the cushion, almost as if Eloise knows at this point, even though she doesn't. The deception is there. You can kind of feel it almost eating away at her in that moment when she's suddenly confronted by Eloise's visage. They kind of have this discussion about music, and she walks over to this shrouded harpsichord and begins to play. And I think this also is a symbol of the art being hidden from Eloise. The harpsichord is hidden under the canvas. And then Eloise walks over and pulls it off so that she can sit and and listen to Marianne play the harpsichord.
Marianne starts playing it while it's still covered, like she doesn't uncover it all the way, and Heloise is the one that pulls the covering all the way off.
This is the only music in the film.
Almost the only music.
There's 3 moments with music.
Oh, yeah.
There's also an exchange of dialogue here where Heloise asks, "Is it merry?" And Marianne says, "No, but it's lively," because it's not a happy song, but it's one that's full of life. And I think that really speaks to a lot of things happening in the movie.
I love that you said that, Kyra, because it's like this movie is not at in the end going to be the happiest thing ever, but it is full of life, it is full of reality, and it doesn't like fall into in like queer cinema, it doesn't fall into that trope of the tragic gay. It actually plays around with that, and it shows life. Yeah, so very beautiful.
It's revealed that the portrait, she has finished the portrait and tells the mother about that, but that she wants to tell Heloise herself so that she can, be honest before she leaves. Marianne sets fire to the unfinished portrait by the previous painter, like right on the heart.
She doesn't do it on purpose, right? It's an accident before she puts it in the fire.
Yeah. I think that's implied because you could say she accidentally lights it on fire, but then she doesn't try to put it out. She just sits there and stares at it.
I feel like it's little column A, little column B. It was kind of an accident, but she wasn't really stopping herself from burning that other person's painting, being like, you don't know her.
Yeah. I don't know what the purpose of this is. I don't know what it symbolizes. I guess it sort of symbolizes, like, rejection of the social norms and Marianne's commitment to, like, court Heloise.
I think to me, it's more about destruction of the male gaze. Like she's made this resolution to tell her about what she's been doing and being honest. So it's like the death of the deception, while also at the same time, it's like sort of the ignition of her feelings for Heloise as well.
I definitely think that there's something to Marianne igniting something in Heloise and maybe starting to see it a little bit in this moment. And so this sense of being on fire means a lot of different things in the film, but I think especially since this fire starts at her heart, it's a sense of being lit up by the other person, and that's something Marianne is doing for Heloise. But then also the concept, like when the painting is fully in the fire, is like destroying this version of Heloise that was constructed by a man that doesn't like have the face.
So the two are down at the beach, and Marianne reveals to Heloise that she has been painting her and it is complete, and she wants to show it to her. We then get the scene where Heloise and Marianne stare at the painting and...
Oh, real quick. The whole movie's laden with excellent compositions, and there's one in this scene I really, really liked that I made a note on it. Once Heloise hears the news, she says, "Then I think I will bathe." And she goes and takes her clothes off and runs into the ocean. And the composition is pile of clothes on the beach, path of footprints towards the ocean, and then Heloise just standing out in the middle of the water. You have this giant sky and the blue water, which always looks so good in this movie. The water is so good. I want to put it in a bottle and drink it. It's fucking crisp and foamy. Ah,
Boy, that's salt water.
fuck. So yeah, I thought that was great.
When Heloise sees the painting, she seems visibly upset, and they get into this little dialogue kind of critiquing it. It's like, is this how you see me? And Marianne gets sort of defensive, and she's like, I didn't know you were an art critic. And Eloise says, I didn't know you were a painter. And that cut deep.
Oh, Eloise.
That's so
That
sick.
was beautiful. That was a good comeback.
Spiritual amounts of sass.
Spiritual amounts of sass. What she's saying in advance of this exchange is also Marianne kind of telling Heloise, it kind of doesn't matter how I see you. What matters is how the audience that this painting is for sees you. It matters how your future husband sees you. It matters about how you fit into certain norms. So my view of you is on some levels irrelevant, because this is not a painting from my looking at you. This is not my gaze. This is the male gaze in this painting. Obviously, she didn't say all that. She said it flowerier and better, but that's what she means.
She said it like she was reading a poem.
Answering the age-old question, can you separate the artist from the art?
Well, Heloise doesn't see it that way, right? She's like, this is you looking at me. I'm seeing what you're seeing me as.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Heloise is definitely in camp. You can't separate the art from the artist.
Eloise storms off, and Marianne, in the frustration from this conversation and sort of just being filled with her emotions, probably some guilt, some shame about what has transpired, her deception, she slams a rag into the face of the portrait and wipes it off.
Great sequence. Slow burn movie, high-paced scene. Yeah. Fast-paced scene. It's so cool because she gets mad, storms out, quick cut, white painting, and then you're immediately cut to the mother of the house looking at the painting like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah. So basically, the mom is like, you're clearly incompetent. You should get out. And then Eloise jumps in and says, no, she's staying. I will pose for her. I will sit for her, which is a big development.
I love that. I feel like, she was telling Marianne essentially being like, this painting does not represent me. This is not how I view myself. This is not how I want to be viewed. And Marianne heard that, was upset by it, and wanted to do better. And Eloise was like, all right, let's see what you got. Let's see what you actually have.
I also think she truly did not want that to be how they departed either. I think she did want the painting is part of it, like acquiescing to her mother's wishes. That's part of it. But also really, really wanting Marianne to stay so she could have more time with her.
Yeah, it's implied that ties into a theme later on in the movie because it's implied that these portraits, these paintings are memories in a way, and that they'll be what reminds you of these moments. So if she leaves right now and all she has is this portrait that was painted for a specific purpose, which was to satisfy her future husband that she hasn't even met yet.
There is also an element that this painting, like Eloise would probably have to look at it her whole life too. Like this painting that she's unsatisfied with, it'd be a very painful reminder of how she got to this place, right?
Yeah.
And she really wants the opportunity to be seen, like to have that, like what Mitch is saying, have that painting that she has to look at for the rest of her life be one where she was at least seen for a little bit in it. And also to have Marianne actually see her instead of just looking at her, which Marianne's been starting to do, but she's really putting the challenge up now. Like, okay, here's your chance.
Yeah.
Look at me, see me.
Because this whole time she's been stealing looks. She's had to because she had to keep this shit secret.
Like, I don't know if, like, at this time in history, how common are portraits? Like, is this her one portrait before she gets married off and she'll never have a portrait again? Or maybe she'll have one towards the end of her life? Like, is this her one rare chance to be seen?
It depends on the level of wealth. Usually aristocrats would get paintings done throughout their life. Usually, before marriage, after the first child, like these big moments where we do these things too, but we don't have to spend a fortune to have a painter come and paint us. So these were rare, exceptional moments in your life to be captured.
Especially this one, because it's the last painting before she becomes whoever she'll be after she's trapped by a man in a place she doesn't want to be.
But yeah, the time period imposes a narrative element to the movie. You can't make this movie at a different time period because of what Mitch was talking about. And then the setting, the isolated nature of the island playing into it feeling like there's a lot of this. I just realized this movie's really excellent at reframing things. It does it all the time where it gives you something at the beginning and morphs it to the exact same thing to mean something else at the end. And it does that with the setting. They're on an island. They have to use a boat to get on and off. And at the beginning, it feels like a prison. It feels like something that you'd want to throw yourself off the side of. At least you imagine the character of Heloise would. But by the end, or I guess during the second act, it feels like their haven. It feels like their fortress against the outside world.
Which only happens once the mother leaves, the symbol of the patriarchy.
Yeah.
The dynamics change once she leaves. They begin to work on the painting together, this time no deception. We learn that Sophie is pregnant, and we get these subsequent scenes where the girls try to end her pregnancy, some running on the beach, picking some sort of herbal situation, having her hang from something, I don't know, trying to shake, create downward something and drink this herbal tea, I don't know.
Excellent, Mitch.
Is this scene a big part of the reason why I was like, I think you need a lady on the podcast? Maybe.
I don't know. It's just so great. Again, this is like the start of me really loving Sophie's character and the storyline, because these are like, you know, women from different statuses of different means coming together to like support each other. Like, this is what mutual aid looks like, y'all. This is people helping each other out in a time of need. And like the way that Sophie just a matter of factly says like, oh yeah, I was gonna see to it once the Countess was like not here. Just like so tough and so like, you know, this is a very heavy and difficult thing that she is dealing with, and the way that she's just being like, this is what's gonna happen. I don't know. Sophie just comes off as just super tough, and I love it.
Yeah, I also love in this scene, Marianne asks her, do you want a baby? And she says no. And there's nothing from Marianne about how did it happen? Why did it happen? Why don't you want the baby? It's just you do or you don't. I know you're not married and you tell me and I'm with you either way. And then there's no further questions asked. And then this like abortion scene almost, or the first attempt at an abortion, inverts the social hierarchy where they're supporting her, and everything about this moment is about Sophie trying to get control back over her own body, something she had to wait for another woman to leave to do. This like series of things that they're trying because there's no medical procedure for this. It's just folk tales and stories told from woman to woman. So we're going to try all of these things and see which one works, and just exhaust you and hope something sticks. And we're here with you for that pain. And they clearly all know already that abortion hurts. And I love this whole sequence. I love Sophie.
But like just the comedic relief in this slow burn that is, it's lovely, it's tense, it's, I don't know, it's serious. It feels somewhat serious in nature, but this comedic relief of like when Sophie is hanging from a beam or something, and Marianne is asking, you know, how does it feel to have sex? And then just thud, Sophie drops and falls to the floor. I really like that, like, break up that levity there.
But I also want to say on the moment where Sophie is hanging is that you only see her feet. You don't see her arms holding her up. And I think it's a real, like, inversion challenge to the idea that of killing yourself to get out of the experience of having to be a woman, especially set up because Heloise's sister did kill herself. And this is Sophie in an image that we might associate with suicide, actually trying very hard to save her life from something that she's not ready for yet. And I love that.
A little thing after the scene, everyone's a little tuckered out, and Marianne has this inspiration to draw Heloise, not for the job as she's sleeping there, but for herself. It's like the first time she's making this art of Heloise as like a personal thing. Like it's something for her. It's not a job, something personal about that she wants to cherish. The next scene is a scene that I was originally not going to talk about, but Kyra made me leave a note for it, and I want to hear what she has to say about it. The scene where the three sit and play cards.
I want to know what Lucas wants to say about the cards scene.
Just like how fun to see them all having fun and like unrestricted, like viewed by I don't know, society, by the hierarchy, by patriarchy. The cruise gaming, what an immaculate vibe.
Cruise game. I really love the cards scene because the context in which each of these three women would play cards is very separate. So the way Sophie would play cards in just like in the kitchen, in the room where they're at with other servants, is a completely different experience from how Heloise would have to play cards, which would be from an aristocratic perspective, sort of a social courting experience, like your opportunity to talk to men and like spend time doing the aristocratic thing involves playing cards. And then the way Marianne would play cards as a working woman would be very careful and calculated. And I just think that there's, in a lot of period pieces, or cards are such a huge thing that happens. Cards come up all the time. And I think this scene breaks down the context in which each of these three characters would otherwise have to play cards. And they're just all together, seeing each other and meeting each other where they're at. I love that.
I think it's a cute scene. I think that observation's really cool. I didn't pick up on that when I first watched it. I do think that there's a lot of time spent after the mother leaves, basically up until when they have their argument. There's not a whole lot of conflict. There's a lot of characterization. I guess a lot of the conflict is held in Sophie's subplot, but I mean, that's not really relevant to the main plot. It only serves to characterize the two main characters, which is fine, but for this big swath of the story, it's a little inefficient, and given the pace of the story, it kind of exacerbates the issue, in my opinion.
Its relevance, I think there's a lot about the female gaze and about the female experience in this subplot that maybe doesn't serve to advance the romance plot, but serves to advance the narrative overall of the film.
Hey, this is Mitch from the editor's room. I realized that for this next scene, I didn't provide any context to the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Basically, it's a Greek tragedy where the wife of Orpheus, Eurydice, dies tragically. And he's so passionate that he makes a journey to Hades to see if he can bargain to bring her back from the dead. And Hades and Persephone make him a deal that if he turns around and walks out without turning back, she'll be free. But basically, right on the threshold of the afterlife, he turns around, breaking the deal, and he sees her fall back into the darkness of the abyss. The next scene is a pretty important scene, and that is when the three sit around and Heloise is sharing or reading the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Each of them have their own interpretation about why Orpheus turns around at the end of the story.
Orpheus turns around and Eurydice is drawn back into the afterlife?
Hades, or the afterlife. They're the same thing.
Just to give a summary of the three characters, what are their individual reactions to this?
So the first comment is Sophie, and she's like she's like, that's stupid. Like, why would he do that? Like, she's very angry at him for being impatient and turning around like, oh, just because you want to see her so bad, you've killed her. That's so dumb.
You ruined it.
Yeah, I can't remember what Heloise's take is.
Eloise, I think, was like that this person is madly in love that they had no other choice but to look back.
Yeah, but then she revises it afterwards because Marianne then says, no, she makes the poet's choice, not the lover's choice. He wants the memory of her. He wants to see that to be his last memory of her, which Eloise then retorts, giving Eurydice agency in the story. Well, maybe she asked him to turn around.
I think it's just so cute when Eloise is reading. Like, she's really good at reading and creating the voices and telling a story and performing. And you just see Marianne just like also similar thing, just like looking at her and admiring her. It's fun to see when your partner is doing something they're good at. And it's like this beautiful thing to bear witness to.
Yeah, and it's just an opportunity for the three of them to engage in intellectual conversation. But of course, the whole thing comes back because nothing in this movie happens without being revisited somehow differently later on.
The campfire scene.
Yeah. In my notes, I have THX logo.
Oh.
I saw a review with that in it.
Because all the there's a bunch of women there. They're all sitting around a fire hanging out, and they start to sing and they go, oh.
And it sounds like the old THX videos from the home VHS.
Until it like comes into true song. And this is the second song in the film.
Yes, there is no music in this film that is not what the characters are hearing, which is something we didn't talk about a lot. For instance, I'm just curious, did you guys notice there was no music until she started playing the piano?
Yes. For the like comparisons of Portrait of a Lady on Fire and Call Me by Your Name, Call Me by Your Name is the opposite, where there is this essentially like cohesive album almost that plays throughout the entire movie, created by Sufjan Stevens.
Let's go,
Yeah,
Sufjan.
sad boy vibes. But it was just a stark contrast, and I was like, oh, there's a lack of music except for very specific points.
See, it could just be my broken dumbass that I don't hear music ever, that I didn't notice there was no music in this film until she plays the harpsichord.
The director talks about trying to put musicality in the film anyway. Like, you have to take this number of steps across the room during this scene so that we only like hear this number of steps, and like putting rhythm into the movement since there isn't music elsewhere. So I think there is some musicality in it still, but what Mitch is speaking to, I really love, in that when the moments of music do happen, it's like, oh, wow, you're really feeling it. You're experiencing it the way Heloise does, in that she doesn't get to experience music that often.
Immediately when I just saw it was like a field of women out by the bonfire, like I was like, please have it be witchy, please have it be witchy. And like to some degree I kind of think it was, because it's like, you know, Sophie is there to meet with somebody to help and aid in, are you still pregnant? What are the next steps in seeking this abortion? And these women are coming together to sing and probably behave in a way that the patriarchy and society would not deem is acceptable. And it's cool to see, the lineage of knowledge of how to perform abortions can be passed down. Very witchy in the best way possible.
I have a note, actually, two things. One, I have some notes on this song, and the director chose it because she was looking for something witchy. Two, I have a note that the scene gives a sense of witches. Like, maybe for a second you think they're all going to start dancing naked around the fire, but I think ultimately it echoes that statement, they burned women, not witches. These are just women getting together in the only kind of place they can, burning a fire because it's probably cold.
Hell yes. Hell yeah.
Also, Eloise's dress catches on fire, so it's not a metaphor.
Yes.
It really happened.
I think this is cool because this is one of the incomplete thoughts I have about the movie, but it's implied that portraits are memories. So when this happened, my first thought was, oh, this is the memory that she chose to remember Eloise by. The other thing about it, though, is how fleeting it is. And there's a sense that, like, there's a timer on things. Everything is temporary. At some point in your life, you'll be living in your memories. The beauty of Eloise in that moment is that if she stayed on fire any longer, she'd be damaged or dead. So they have to put her out. They have to put her out immediately. But for that brief moment, she's beautiful. I mean, she's always beautiful. She's a beautiful actress, but in that brief moment, she's unlike anything she could ever be. And no one will ever see her like that again, except through the portrait that's painted of her. The only person that gets to see her in that state is Marianne. She has the memory in her head, and she's the only one.
Yeah, and Heloise knows it because she's looking across the fire at Marianne like, do you see me? That's like what the look in her face is. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, like Eloise is distracted and not like fully comprehending that she's on fire because she's so distracted by Marianne fully like seeing her for the first time, and like they're both like seeing each other being recognized. I don't know. It's fun. It's a really cool scene.
I have a quote from the director. She says, I wrote the lyrics in Latin. They're saying, and then she says the Latin phrase, which I won't insult anyone by trying to say, which means they come fly. It's an adaptation of a sentence by Nietzsche, who says basically the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. So I'm seeing the director saying it means they come fly.
Marianne pulls Eloise up, which quickly smash cuts to them walking on the beach again, and they go into this little cave and have a smooch.
They go into the beach to smooch, and they're wearing those face coverings. And to kiss, they have to remove the face coverings.
The face masks coming back also like builds up the anticipation of the kiss. Like there's still this barrier between them, even in like total solitude in this cave on a beach. They have this thin veneer, like this very wafer thin piece of fabric that they have to pull away from their mouths to like finally, like after an hour and a half.
Also, the moments leading up to the kiss, just cute and enticing and showing the yearning. The helping one of them down the rocks, and how one of them would hold, her waist, and how sensual that was. And just these little moments of them touching and how they're both paying attention to it all kind of helped with the buildup.
So after the kiss, Eloise sort of gets out of there real quick. It's revealed she doesn't come down to dinner. Marianne's in that oh no, did I do something wrong? Maybe she wasn't comfortable with it. So she walks up the stairs heading towards her room. And this is where we first see the specter of Eloise in a white dress. In keeping with the film's feelings of being seen, Marianne feels that presence, feels that observance, and turns around, sees her. Spectre fades into the dark, echoing Tale of Orpheus and Eurydice. So she heads back to her room, and guess who's there waiting for her? Eloise.
Burt Reynolds. I was wrong. Fuck.
They pronounce their feelings, and man, this scene is so steamy. There's no there's no sex in this scene. Spoiler alert. But the way they are talking to each other and looking at each other and caressing each other is.
And the way it's lit. Yeah.
Also, how Eloise says something that is so fucking hot. That she says that she was thinking of Marianne, and Marianne's like, "Oh, you dreamt of me?" And she says, "No, I thought of you." I don't know. To me, that was really hot.
For sure.
Yeah, I love that line as well. It's like she's indicating I had agency in how I was picturing you and what I thought of us being. I wasn't a passive experiencer of that. I did the thinking.
Yeah.
My favorite line in this scene is when Eloise says, "Do all lovers feel like they're inventing something?"
It's presumed we cut to them waking up in the morning. They presumably have had sex, awoken by a knock at the door. Sophie's like, "Did you guys forget? Are you guys still coming to the thing with me?" It's very cute. It's very sweet. They go to walk with Sophie down to this lady's house to be with her and support her during her abortion.
This lady being presumably a midwife and a village healer.
So this next scene is a really important scene, and I think Kyra should talk about it and describe it.
Yeah, so Heloise and Marianne and Sophie go into the midwife's house, and the midwife is preparing something over the fire, and she tells Sophie to lie down. And the house is one room, so there's kind of nowhere else to go. And Sophie lies down on the bed, which is also where there are two children. They might be the midwife's children. They might be children that belong to other women that she's babysitting. Sophie lies down on the bed. The midwife puts her feet up in her lap, and Marianne turns away. And Heloise looks at her and tells her to look. I think that line is so important. Yeah, then the midwife performs the abortion, and you can see Sophie's face with the two children next to her. An infant is one of them, and you can tell that she's in pain, and it could be physical, it could be emotional. I'd read it as both. And the infant is kind of like touching her face and just sort of infant waving hands around. That moment of Heloise telling Marianne to look is possibly my favorite moment in the entire film. I think that it's a true challenge to Marianne in seeing and looking and just sort of witnessing. I see in that moment from Marianne a patriarchal fear of this very normal thing that happened all the time, that, men just wanted to pretend didn't exist. There's also a fear of, abortions are dangerous, and they were extremely dangerous in this period of time. Like, is she about to watch her friend die? And Heloise challenging her, like, give Sophie the dignity of being seen in this moment, because this has to be normal. It has to be something that we live through. We all live through it. Let her be seen. And I love that moment.
No, yeah, I love that moment of Eloise being like, look, do not shy away from reality. It's like Eloise being like, did you not learn anything from this entire thing? It's like, give this person the dignity of seeing them as they are, of seeing the power, the perseverance, and vulnerability of, very powerful scene, for sure.
I think there's also something really cool about both of their sort of abortion scenes being like a collaborative thing, like women coming together, sharing knowledge that has been passed down through generations forever. Like, presumably things like this have been going on for as long as people have been peopling. I think there's also something really sweet about her, Sophie, experiencing this. It's hard to interpret the actions of the child, but you could almost see it as the child consoling her. People are beautiful, and especially like children's abilities to like recognize emotion, even at like a really small age, and like empathize. It's like such a cool moment.
Yeah, I think it also really speaks to this idea that I think it makes a broader comment about abortion, but also in Sophie's character, like this idea that she's not going to be a mother now, but that doesn't mean she's never going to be a mother. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with her not wanting to be a mother now. And this baby, like being there and being part of her life and providing that consolation, sort of giving a sense of what could be and still might be. Right now might not be the right time, but that doesn't mean that you're making any kind of like horrible decision. Yeah, I think it's just an unbracing look at reality without judgment. And I think it's really well shot. I think after this scene, they go back to the like manor house or wherever it is, and they're all in Marianne's bed. Sophie's not feeling great because abortions suck and they don't make you feel good. But Heloise has this idea, so she pulls one of the mattresses over and asks Sophie if she's feeling good enough to move, and sets herself up so that she and Sophie can pose for Marianne to paint that moment. And they together capture and put down on paper this moment of having an abortion, and it's the three of them really connecting, and it's Heloise really forcing Marianne to like go through seeing it, and Marianne finally getting it. And also just this really beautiful moment of women documenting a woman's experience in a way that was not documented, and when it was documented later was destroyed because it was not knowledge that men wanted women to have or maintain or retain. Yeah, I think that I hear what you're saying, Ben, about the like B plot here, not really speaking about Marianne and Heloise on like a surface level, but I think it does a lot to, I don't know, speak to who they're becoming. Yeah, go ahead.
I like that scene. I like that scene a lot. I don't like any of the other ones with the Sophie's B plot. I mean, I like them. I just don't think that in a movie paced like this, they're really, I don't know, necessary. There could have been more of a focus on the actual plot at hand. I like tight focus stories. I don't know. Maybe that's just a preference thing. It probably is.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the decision to paint this to commemorate the moment that is worthy of being written down, being regarded. It is very human. It captures so many different emotions of like pain and love and like friendship of people coming together for this, and the freedom that it's going to bestow Sophie and grant her to make her own decisions for whatever her future is going to be. Something that could probably get them in trouble, but like to write it down and give it and to paint it in a light of dignity was a very beautiful and powerful thing. But I will say, when she at first was like, "Get off the mattress," I was like, "You don't tell her what to do. Like, she's gonna lay down on that mattress and she's gonna stay there, okay?"
She's recovering. Something that I just thought of actually is, I think there's also something powerful about this. Mitch was talking earlier about, in this moment in history, you'd have paintings done, if you had the money for it, of your most important life moments, right? Like around your marriage and around your first child. And this is a really important life moment that they're painting, and it's still a thing that is so secret and so unacknowledged.
We get more flirty painting between Eloise and Marianne. Very cute looks at each other. In a scene that might feel incongruous with the rest of the film, the two are laying naked on the bed, and Heloise decides that they should do this sort of drug together, which involves taking some kind of paste and rubbing in their armpits.
What is that? What is that? I want to know, because I don't know.
She said she got it in that scene. She says she got it from a market and that it's a paint, but that the lady said that it can make you fly and make time slow down. So I think, at least to me, my interpretation of this scene is that they're doing one thing. It's like, oh, you guys want to fuck around and try some drugs? Like that's partly there, but also the desire to slow and enhance their time together, or like experience something new together.
Yeah, I also think it's a reference back to the Nietzsche quote that inspired the lyrics for the song Around the Fire. They come fly thing. Yeah.
I just looked it up, and it says typical ingredients would include belladonna, henbane bell, Jimson weed black, henbane, mandrake, hemlock, and wolfsbane. It is called flying ointment. I do see a lot of elements. Like, they initially were only supposed to have 6 days together, and then it got extended because of the smudging of the original painting, and they're coming towards the end of their days, and like, yeah, they're trying to milk it for all the time they can have together.
We get the second series of the Spectre of Eloise, the callback to Orpheus and Eurydice. At least in my interpretation, it's the second one where she turns around. In the poet sense, she wants to see her again. They continuing painting together nearing the end, and they end up getting in a fight about what it means for them. They're both looking at the painting, and Marianne says that she wants to destroy this painting as well.
Heloise talks about how Marianne also says she wants to destroy it because in completing it, she gives Heloise to someone else. And Heloise calls her on being angry at her for not fighting back, asks Marianne if she would have her do it differently, and Marianne says no.
Kind of having to come to terms with the situation they set out from the point they decided to work on the painting together. They knew this was coming. Marianne's having regrets and frustration that with the world that it can't be for her, and she wishes it was. We get a cool shot of Sophie embroidering flowers and informed that the mother will return tomorrow for the painting. Really cool imagery, just the continuing like her embroidering again, like a woman capturing a moment in time through art. Pretty neat. Kyra pointed that one out to me.
We see throughout the film she's embroidering this bouquet of flowers, and the bouquet of flowers is slowly dying. And so in this last scene of her embroidering the flowers, the bouquet is really quite dead, but the embroidery is almost done, and it's of a very alive bouquet of flowers.
The ladies make up on the beach.
It's a heartbreaking scene just because, like, I know Marianne can't. It's unfair of her to ask Eloise to do something that is going to be difficult, that is going to be this uphill battle. But, like, it truly isn't the only choice to marry this man. Like, you can pursue love. But back then, like, it's not just an uphill battle. It's the possibility of being killed. It's, the possibility of being exiled from society. And like, nowadays you have more of a choice, but it's heartbreaking because of the life they could have had and how so many people throughout history did not have that opportunity because of all the other assholes out there.
They muster up the courage to finish the painting. How do we know it's finished? At one point, we stop.
I love that line.
They kind of have their last sweet, bittersweet moments together where Marianne makes a portrait of each of them so they each can have a moment or have a piece to remember each other by. And a key thing is that the portrait that Marianne does for Eloise is in the book, The Tale of Orpheus, on a specific page 28.
I also want to note in this scene that while Marianne is doing her self-portrait to leave in the book, Heloise is like lying completely naked, and she's got a mirror propped up against her, like covering her vagina, where Marianne is looking at herself. And this is another moment of challenging what is the gaze, where do you see yourself, how do you see yourself?
The farewell. Eloise is given the gown. The portrait is presented to the Countess. They embrace for one last time. Marianne quickly leaves, but as she leaves, Eloise says, "Turn around." And there she is standing in the white gown, the image that we've seen twice before now. She closes the door as she falls back into the darkness. Brutal.
Yeah, it's sad. It's really sad. But the sadness doesn't stop.
We flash forward to the present. Marianne narrates that she saw Eloise twice more. We are presented with this the first time, which is she's at a gallery and she happens upon a portrait of Eloise with presumably her daughter. But it's notable that in the portrait, Eloise has her finger in a book open to a certain page, and it's on page 28, a signal out through time to Marianne that Eloise has not forgotten, and she specifically chose to have that immortalized in art. Super fucking cool.
This scene is also one of the very few times where we see a man speak. The man comes up because Marianne's at the gallery because her paintings are in the gallery, but they're there under her father's name. And a man comes up to her to comment on one of her paintings of Orpheus and Eurydice, and is sort of patronizing to her, and she tells him it's my painting, and he sort of sees that in the Orpheus and Eurydice painting, it's a different moment than is normally painted by other folks.
Presumably men.
Men,
Yeah.
yes.
Also, that in this painting of Orpheus and Eurydice, she is also immortalizing their relationship in art. Marianne says that she sees Heloise one more time, but that Eloise didn't see her. At a symphony, Vivaldi begins to play the song, the Summer of the Four Seasons, the song that she played for her on the harpsichord. Eloise, we get a slow tracking zoom, or a tracking in on Eloise being moved by the piece, being set on fire.
She cries and breathes heavily and soars through all sorts of different emotions for like fucking 2 whole minutes. And for those whole 2 minutes, it's the same shot.
It's an incredible piece of acting. Just, yeah.
This scene is just like, pure raw emotion. This is one of those scenes that actually is very much in common with Call Me By Your Name, where, spoiler alert, the ending is...
Whoa! What if I want to watch that movie?
Well, that's fair.
We can just remember that we should look for something at the end of Call Me By Your Name.
There are similarities in Call Me By Your Name, but it's a very raw, emotional scene. We are left there to face reality, just like Eloise asked Marianne to do at the abortion scene, to just witness and to understand. And oof, is it heavy. Also, but the part of me that processes sadness with comedy wanted to be like, everyone in that theater was hearing her sniffling and crying. Let's be real. Everything is heard in a theater.
Not at an orchestra. Orchestras are very loud. I don't know if you've ever seen a live orchestra perform. Also, that
True.
piece especially, that's a portrait of a lady on fire. Guess we'll go around the horn, closing thoughts, and then we'll get to ratings and unhinged Letterboxd reviews.
I thought it was fantastic. I learned a lot about it listening to you all talk about it. There's a ton I did not pick up on that I just straight up missed. But I was still very moved by it. I think it's a brutal movie, very sad, but not as sad as you made it out to be. In fact, I regret using that as the adjective to summarize the thing, because I don't think that it's brutal first. I think it's very much like Marianne says about the Vivaldi piece. It's lively. It's full of life. And depending on what you choose to focus on, it can be very depressing, but it can also be very empowering and enlightening and open your eyes to a lot of beautiful things. I want to live in the actual painting, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It's an outdoor scene painted to look like an indoor scene. I love it so much. I love the composition. I want it on my wall. There's a lot of incredible filmmaking decisions on display here. Like, it soars on the screen. It is such a fucking brilliantly made movie. Beyond the, and it's focused too. It takes decisions from one area and uses them in another. So it doesn't try and focus on camera movements. It lets the compositions do everything. And as a result, it's very focused, which it needs to be because it has a lot to say about some very specific things. All in all, excellent movie. I'm very excited to watch it again.
Yeah, I would say this is a beautiful movie. The way it is shot, the amount of posing that you casually just see, the amount of symbolism, the beauty in the relationship, the beauty of these three women coming together and helping each other out. It's amazing. And then in terms of just the meta of like queer cinema, since the Hays Code laws, for grand mainstream production companies or actors for queer cinema representation, initially you have the portrayal of like the monstrous gay or the monstrous queer of somebody who is a bad person, aka Norman Bates, and then you have this idea of like the tragic queer or the tragic gay, so something akin to Brokeback Mountain, where their love is kind of unrealized, and it doesn't end happy. One of them usually dies, but this movie plays with that tragic gay stereotype. It still ends in a way that affirms the relationship, especially that ending painting where she's showing the page 28. But I think it kind of is a critique on that tragic queer stereotype. So I love it.
Yeah, I love this movie. Like I said, every moment of it feels thought through and intentional. And yeah, it's very painterly. It's like looking at a painting brought to life. I feel very seen in it. I think that there are a lot of movies that try to talk about the experience of being a woman and sort of the loneliness of being a woman, as well as the community that can be found in other people who experience that loneliness. And I can't think of one that makes me feel as seen as this one does in that way. Yeah, I love this movie. I would be hard pressed to find much to critique about it at all.
Yeah, I don't have really any closing thoughts. I love it. It's beautiful. Next up, we have our final ratings. Let's just keep with the order we just did.
I'd give it like an 8 to a 9.
I'd give it a 9.
Yeah, I struggle on whether or not I give this one a 9 or a 10 because I don't know if I can give anything a 10. Can anything actually be perfect?
Yes, things can be a 10. Yes, 10 doesn't mean perfect. It's a fucking numerical scale to describe art. Like, you can have a 10. If you want a 10, you can have a 10.
Okay, then it's a 10. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, this is a 10 for me, y'all. This is by far one of my favorite films. Not too many things come close to it. Like a sigh of relief, we got through a lot of emotional things. And let's end on some levity and see what some unhinged people on the internet think about this film. So this is from Letterboxd user Issy. Finally, the 2-hour extended portrait painting ASMR video I've been looking for.
This one is from Letterboxd from a user called Clementine. They seem to be good friends.
I saw that one.
Mine comes from Elena K. from Rotten Tomatoes. Presumably she gave the movie 1.5 stars. And she wrote, while this film may have its merits in its cinematography, period piece costume design, and production design, in the end that may be all the film has. Perhaps that's why it feels so contrived, because any romantic film worth this runtime should not feel like a long and overdrawn Instagrammable moment wherein the caption reads mood. As pretty as it was too pretty, and without anything intellectually or emotionally demanding on the viewer's part, it was ultimately dull.
Wow.
I just want to hyper-focus on it was too pretty.
I love reading 1-star reviews of this film. Like, it's just crazy. I can't believe some of them were so funny.
All right, well, I will end us with Anas from Letterboxd. Life is hard, but women are hot.
Perfect.
Amen, brother.
Cheers, folks. Thanks for listening. Also, big thank you to Stefan Reichart, who created the musical sting at the start of the pod.
And a big thank
Thanks,
you.
Stefan.
And a big thank you to me.
Yeah, a big thank you to us.
being
Special
here.
guest Kyra.
Thank you to my loving wife.
Mitch's wife.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, the musical sting is wonderful. Good job, Stefan.
I'm glad she wanted to be on the pod. I'm glad she wanted to suffer us 3 idiots for a couple hours while we talk about these very important issues and important films.
And thanks to you 3 idiots for suffering me. None of you are stupid, and I love all of you.
And that's the pod, folks. No episode next week, but the week after that, you can look forward to Ben hosting the film Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. Have a good 2 weeks. Bye.